James Anderson never imagined that betrayal would become the force that reshaped every part of his life. On a warm Monday morning in Houston, he walked into the small distribution office he had built over nearly a decade, coffee in hand, ready to begin a new week. But the moment he opened the door, his breath caught. His desk was empty, the computers gone, the cabinets thrown open and stripped bare. When he rushed to the warehouse, the shock only deepened. Shelves that once held thousands of dollars in cleaning supplies now stood completely empty, as if someone had erased his life overnight. His mind refused to accept what he was seeing. He called his business partner, the man he trusted like a brother, but the phone rang endlessly. He dialed again and again until the truth settled heavily in his chest. Something terrible had happened. When the police arrived, the officer delivered a blow James could barely withstand. Because his partner legally owned 50% of the company, taking inventory and assets was not technically considered theft. It was a civil dispute. What James believed had been stolen, nearly $90,000 in merchandise and equipment, was gone, and recovering it would take years of legal battles with no guarantee of success. 41 years old, married, father of 2 children, suddenly stripped of everything he had worked so hard to build, James felt himself sinking into a darkness he had never known. It was not simply the financial loss that crushed him. It was the betrayal. The deep wound of realizing that the person he trusted most had spent months preparing to destroy the business they had built together. He stood inside the empty warehouse, surrounded by silence, trying to understand how his life had collapsed so quickly and so brutally. The following weeks were some of the darkest he had ever endured. Sleep became impossible. Food tasted like nothing. He avoided friends and family because he felt ashamed, even though he had done nothing wrong. His wife, Monica, carried the weight of holding the household together, watching the man she loved disappear inside his own grief. One Sunday, their pastor knocked on the door, sat with James in the living room, listened to everything quietly, and finally said words that pierced straight through his despair. "Your betrayal does not define your destiny. What you choose to do next will." Something stirred inside him, not confidence, not clarity, but the smallest spark of determination. James realized he only had 2 choices: remain buried under anger, or rebuild slowly, painfully, and intentionally. He chose to rebuild. He began with what remained. He still had his knowledge, his experience, and a handful of loyal clients who trusted him personally. With the last $2,000 in savings, James purchased minimal inventory and turned his garage into a tiny warehouse. He called clients one by one, explaining the truth without bitterness. Many stayed with him because they trusted his integrity. That first month, he barely earned enough to cover bills, but it was the beginning of something fragile yet promising. James worked 18-hour days. He handled orders, purchased supplies, made deliveries in his old car, and did bookkeeping late into the night. Monica helped with invoices after her teaching job. Together, they transformed their home into the heart of a quiet but determined rebuilding. James kept meticulous records, implemented strict financial controls, and vowed never again to operate without complete transparency. What had once been his downfall became a new discipline that shaped every decision he made. Within 6 months, his income stabilized. Within a year, he exceeded what he used to earn. But along with financial recovery came something deeper: purpose. People began approaching him with their own stories of fraud, betrayal, and collapse. He realized he was not alone. There were countless entrepreneurs suffering in silence, ashamed of being deceived by someone they trusted. He started hosting small workshops at his church, teaching others how to identify red flags, structure partnerships safely, and protect their assets. What began as a simple session for 10 people grew rapidly. Soon he was invited to speak at community centers, small business groups, and other local organizations. His story resonated across both Hispanic and American communities because betrayal, loss, and rebuilding transcend culture and language. James discovered that the wound that almost destroyed him had become the platform from which he lifted others. His business continued to grow steadily, and the workshops became an additional source of income, modest at first, then significant as demand increased. By the third year, James had fully recovered emotionally and financially. Year 4 brought expansion. James hired employees, moved into a new warehouse, and launched an online course teaching fraud prevention for small business owners. He created a podcast where he interviewed entrepreneurs who had survived financial disasters. His message was simple but powerful. People do not follow those who never fall. They follow those who rise again. And James had risen with grace, discipline, and unwavering faith. Today, 5 years after his collapse, James owns a thriving distribution company, earns more than he ever did before, and leads an educational program that has helped thousands protect their businesses and rebuild their confidence. His journey stands as living proof that the worst pain sometimes becomes the seed of your greatest purpose. His life became a testament to resilience, wisdom, and the quiet miracles that unfold when you refuse to surrender. James often reflects on the moment his world collapsed and realizes that rebuilding began long before the business recovered. It started the day he believed that God could bring purpose out of devastation. He learned that healing is rarely dramatic. It is a slow strengthening of the soul, a quiet decision each morning to rise again even when the weight of betrayal still aches. He discovered that success built with integrity grows deeper roots, and that the wisdom gained through suffering becomes a map for others walking similar valleys. His transformation was not just professional, but spiritual, reshaping how he viewed trust, resilience, and calling. He now understands that some storms do not arrive to destroy you, but to clear a path for the life you were meant to build. You just spent 8 minutes for God. 8 minutes to grow in wisdom, faith, and peace. See you tomorrow. Verse for your meditation. Romans chapter 12, verse 19. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, "It is mine to avenge. I will repay," says the Lord.